Hi Anand. So today I thought we'll talk about this. Since last time we spoke in great length about how dollar became the reserve currency, we'll dive into the history behind it. What caused the dollar to become the reserve currency? It was just not right after World War II that just people like started saying yes, dollar will be the reserve currency. I'm sure you can tell us more in detail what really happened, the war expenses from World War II, then diving into Korean War, then the Vietnam War, and what finally led to dollar being reserve currency through petrodollars.
Okay. So the first one was that America was relatively insulated from both the world wars. That is, the landmass of America was not attacked. The only attack on the Americans was a possession near Hawaii, where there's a Pearl Harbor attack. The Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. Apart from that, no American soil was attacked.
Mainland
So
wasn't attacked,
attacked.
yes.
So their production base remained
Intact.
intact. So their economy was suffering because of the Great Depression. When they took off money, why did the Great Depression happen? In two sentences. I can go hours on that, but let's talk two sentences. They went out of the gold standard, stroked the economy too much, and then it came back into the gold standard. That's really what happened. So there was a severe monetary correction. So that caused the
Great Depression.
Great Depression. There are other complicated reasons, but this
The
is
gist
the
of it, yes.
gist of it. And the Americans were looking for economic activity to stimulate the growth. Keynes was not the god then, what he became later. So people didn't know what to do. The war meant that America kept on producing enough. Now the
The factories
Americans,
kept running.
yeah, the Americans could produce, but the other guy did not have the money to buy.
Correct.
So there they invented these bonds, victory bonds and other bonds, and gave long-term credit to to the Britishers and to the other allied nations,
To the Europeans.
to the Europeans for 30 years, 40 years. And basically because those bonds were accepted, they could bring cash flow in. And the dollar was effectively devalued by Roosevelt to $36 an ounce. And gold was made illegal. All this happened just before the war.
Correct.
So it was set for a boom. And since the rest of the world depended on America, they had to listen to whatever they say. Keynes said it would be a banker, a currency called banker. You should remember Keynes was a brilliant finance guy. He managed the Indian rupee during this period and it was the strongest currency in the world.
Correct.
And so he said banker without a link to gold, a common reserve currency. The Americans wouldn't have none of it. They had won the war. They had financed it, and they wouldn't go give it to a maverick Britisher and hand it over to him. They said, "Thank you very much. We have won the war. We will be the banker." So what they said, we'll be fixed to gold. You remain fixed to us. And the rest of them had to sign on dotted lines because they had won the war, obviously.
There's no choice. So
No
victor gets
choice.
the spoils.
Yeah. And also Soviet Union was moving rapidly. So whether you wanted to be on this side of the Iron Curtain, on that side of the Iron Curtain, people chose this side of the Iron Curtain,
The Western Europeans.
the Western Europe. And there was a constant threat of Cold War that if the Americans withdrew, then the Europeans would just walk right through.
The
Russians would.
Russians would walk, the communists would walk right through.
So,
This was all right after World War, in the 50s.
yes. And the two superpowers kept fighting each other. There are two famous wars.
Hmm.
One was the War of Russia, War of Koreans,
The Korean War.
where both of them played proxy games.
Correct.
And there was a Vietnam War, where the Americans got involved and the Russians financed Ho Chi Minh. And Ho Chi Minh beat the
Americans.
back and blue.
Yes. So they
So
lost
they
the
had
Korean War.
they
And
lost they lost both. The Korean War
it
was
was a
not.
stalemate.
It was a stalemate.
It didn't move anywhere.
It didn't move, but South Korea was free. In Vietnam, they lost the whole thing.
Correct. Vietnam War they lost.
They lost. They ran from Hanoi,
Yes, on
from
choppers.
Saigon.
Yeah.
The last chopper taking off.
Yes, the famous photo of that.
The famous photo of that. So They lost it. And they had spent a lot of money on it.
Yes, printed
So they had printed more gold than what they had. And this led to the
1970s squeeze.
squeeze. And what they announced, they said that it will go off the gold standard. That created a huge depreciation in the rupee by fire on the dollar,
Yes.
huge dollar. And but the markets rallied. Now they needed a new crutch to survive. They survived from 45 to 30 years.
True.
They needed to extend it by another period. So they had to find a new crutch.
Right at the time, the OPEC decided
The
to.
OPEC decided an oil embargo. But all the Saudis' oil was controlled by the Americans. They had a company called Aramco.
Just tell that, yes.
It's called the American Arabian Company.
Yeah.
And the Americans were major investors. They taught the Arabs how to drill the oil. So they were controlling the economy.
Yes.
And so Kissinger did a pact. These places were the last few places in the world where there was no democracy and there was absolute monarchy.
Correct.
The Iran had the Shah of Iran.
The whole Persian Gulf was ruled
monarchy,
by tribes, yes.
Except perhaps Iraq. Everybody was a king.
Correct. A kingdom.
The kingdom. These guys were running a roughshod over their citizens with no rights and nothing. So the Americans did a deal with all these guys.
The petrodollar.
That's the petrodollar. You will peg your currency with the dollar.
Hmm.
The dollar, you will not have an independent monetary policy.
Correct.
Dollar goes up, down, your oil goes up, down. And you will accept payment from all countries only in US dollars.
Correct.
Now, the rest of the world was importing crude.
True.
These guys were the major suppliers. North Sea oil had not yet come. Norway had not yet found oil.
Correct. Even US, they are not energy independent as yet.
They
They're
were
very
not
dependent on the
on
Gulf
this
oil.
oil. So they had everything. So what they did is they did a swap deal. In the sense that you are fixed to my currency. I run your currency basically.
So you give me oil and take securities.
And take securities and I'll give you armies. In fact, if you remember the Gulf War when we were there in 1991, the Americans caught hold of an Iraqi pilot and said a Saudi prince did it. And there was big celebration that a Saudi prince had got a...
Yes, managed to shoot him down and catch him.
You remember.
Yeah.
But the whole thing was stage managed by the Americans. That's what the American news was telling us
the
on
media
radio.
was saying,
On radio. We were hearing both versions. We were inside Saudi at that time.
Correct.
So, from 1971 till today, the world's most liquid commodity in the sense that, and which has a use. Gold has no use. But if I have to run my bike, I need oil. I ride into a car, I need crude.
Yes.
And the crude is what is dominant. And the only payments the Saudis will accept or anybody accept is
American dollars.
So till that breaks down. Now Saudi is making noises. That fellow will be set right in no time.
Correct. Even Venezuela got into trouble because of that. They started making noises.
Yeah. So
Iran got into trouble because
of that. No, Iran, there was a Shah of Iran did all the excesses.
Yes. But then in the
modern society has become a primitive society today. But
that's because of America's doing that.
America played a role in that.
Yes.
They encouraged the Shah of Iran to be a dictator.
Correct.
The same thing they are doing everywhere. America says democracy at home, tyranny at outside the world. So that is what gives them control over the market.
Creating this petrodollar.
See, there are more Indians in Saudi than Americans. So we can give them rupees and they can give us reals and we can trade in rupee real trade. Then the hegemony of Americans will be broken.
Correct.
For giving all our guys salary, which they are giving, we can take oil. True. Anyway, the Indians are remitting money into home.
That's only the Americans allow it, right? For this grip to break, for us to really change our reserve currency, there has to be a fundamental shift where people stop using dollar as a trading currency.
Yeah, but you have to understand one thing. Which other country currency is so trusted? True. You won't trust China, which is another dictator. Who is a dictator?
Correct. The only reason America is saying because of capitalism and democracy and all.
So there is always transfer of power between the Republicans and Democrats.
So far, it's been smooth.
So far.
Touch wood. Yeah.
Even Trump went.
Yes, with a lot of hue and grey.
But he went.
Yes.
That peaceful of transfer of power, China will never allow.
Nor the Russians will have.
Allow. So this is why, like Francis Fukuyama has said, unless there's a liberal democracy with a strong currency, that's not going to happen. The euro could have, but the euros are busy fighting among themselves.
Yes.
They have a unit monetary policy. They don't have a united fiscal policy.
No, there is no unity there, really, to be very honest.
No, the two economies require different things.
Yes.
Germany is the strongest. It requires a very low interest rate regime.
Correct.
Somebody like
And
Italy.
culturally also, the people are very different.
Yeah. So
Germans, the way they are very not spendthrift, they're more savers.
yeah.
But you take the southern Europeans, they
Yeah.
like spending their money.
So there is, unless a country emerges the size of Europe with a currency like euro, you cannot challenge the Americans. The Americans are doing their very best to damage it themselves.
True.
The petrodollar concept is you take money for the oil in dollars. Okay, there is another way this can end. If the world does not need oil,
I don't see that in the foreseeable
I'll
future.
see it in the next 10 years, in the sense that the biggest driver of oil is what? Passenger vehicles.
Correct.
The passenger vehicles will disappear. Buses will become electric.
More electric, yes.
Yes. So the demand for oil will drop.
True.
Even if demand for oil cuts by 20 collapse, there will be an oil collapse.
True.
That has forced. Why it is important is, if you look at Saudi, now the way they've been, we were living in Saudi, you couldn't even go to a restaurant and eat with your mother and sister.
Correct. Now it's become very liberal.
It's become a liberal society.
They want to become a tourist. They want to be the next Dubai.
And mom could never drive a car. She could drive a car in India but not drive a car there.
True.
Now everything is possible.
True.
Right? Why is everything possible? Because
they can see the writing on the wall.
They can see the writing on the wall. Everybody can see the writing on the wall. So that challenge, how America handles,
it's a big question.
It's a big question. When the world gets itself weans itself out of oil. I can see the trend because I went to a village and people had put their bikes and had started using electric vehicles.
Yes, electric vehicles are popular in India.
Two-wheelers.
Two-wheelers, yes. I agree. See it more and more on the road nowadays.
Yeah, so if 50% of your vehicles become two-wheelers, then oil demand will collapse.
True. Anyway, let's see what happens. We are going to see, like you said, the next 10 years.
No, that is a challenge.
Yeah, next 10 years, we're going to be around you and me. So we can keep seeing what happens.
Yeah. Thank you for watching Be Rich. I enjoyed this conversation.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. If you like this video, kindly subscribe to my channel and turn on the bell notification. If you don't turn on the bell notification, you will not receive a notification when you put out a new video. If you like this content, share it with your friends and relatives. Once again, I thank you for supporting Be Rich. It's a great privilege and honor that so many of you in thousands have subscribed to my channel and have supported me. I have written 2 books in English, The Alchemy of Money and Ordinary Stocks, Extraordinary Profits. These books are published by us and are ready. If you want to procure a copy, send us a message to the WhatsApp number given below and my team would respond to you. If you want an Amazon Kindle copy, you can click the link below. Finally, those who wish to consult with me can send a mail to berichenglish@gmail.com. Once again, I thank you for your support. If you like this video, press the subscribe button of my channel, hit the like button and turn on the bell notification.